The alien princess halted cold. When she saw me, I discovered why later. Its dense forests glowed with soft light and rivers sparkled like liquid crystal. No human had ever fully explored it, until now. Elias adjusted his helmet and glanced at the ship's dashboard. Atmosphere is breathable. Gravity slightly higher than Earth's, but nothing a human can't handle, he murmured to himself. The planet had been scanned from orbit, but nothing compared to the feeling of standing on its surface. The air smelled different, fresh, crisp, almost like rain after a storm. He stepped off the landing platform, boots crunching against the soft moss that carpeted the ground. The forest stretched endlessly, tall trees with translucent leaves swaying even without wind. Strange, bioluminescent flowers illuminated the path, giving the jungle an almost magical glow. Elias activated his scanner, mapping the terrain as he walked. "Captain Moore," a soft voice called over the communicator. It was Lieutenant Harris back on the ship. "Be careful." Zithra has unusual readings. Sensors detect structures, but they're old, very old. Elias smiled. "I like unusual. Keep an eye on the readings, Lieutenant. I'll report if I find anything." He hiked further, heart pounding with excitement. Every explorer knew the first step on a new world was always thrilling, but something about Zithra felt different. Alive. Watching. Hours passed as he wandered through the forest. His scanners eventually picked up faint energy signatures, not natural. Someone or something was here. Following the readings, Elias stumbled into a clearing. And there it was, a palace, massive and elegant, built from a crystal-like material that shimmered in the soft light. Towers spiraled upward and bridges connected floating platforms like a city in the sky. Elias' jaw dropped. "Impossible," he whispered. "Who built this and why is it hidden?" He approached carefully. The palace doors were enormous, engraved with symbols he didn't recognize. They seemed almost alive, pulsing with a soft glow. Elias reached out and the doors opened silently as if expecting him. He froze for a moment, then stepped inside. The interior was breathtaking. Light floated in the air like tiny stars, reflecting off walls of polished crystal. Statues of tall, elegant beings lined the corridors. Each figure had features unlike anything human, elongated limbs, radiant eyes, and clothes that shimmered like liquid metal. Despite their beauty, the statues seemed solemn, almost sad. Elias walked deeper into the palace, scanners active. "These energy signatures, they're weak, maybe dormant, but there's something here," he muttered. Every step echoed, yet the echo didn't feel empty. It was as if the palace itself was alive, aware of his presence. Suddenly he heard it, a soft gasp. He froze, turning toward the sound, and there she was, Princess Lyra. She stood at the end of a long hall, framed by a doorway of glowing crystal. Her skin shimmered faintly, her eyes large and luminous. But it wasn't her beauty that stopped Elias. It was her reaction. She froze, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, staring straight at him. Elias blinked. Hello," he said cautiously. Lyra didn't move. She remained still, as if seeing a ghost or something even stranger. Elias stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "Who are you?" she finally whispered, her voice melodic but trembling. "I'm Captain Elias Moore, human. I didn't mean to intrude. I'm an explorer from Earth," he said, choosing words carefully. Lyra's gaze didn't leave him. Her eyes scanned him as if searching for something in his very being. Elias felt a chill. There was something in her stare, something deep, almost unsettling. I've never seen your kind before," she said finally. Her voice wavered. "But I know you," Elias frowned. "I think I should leave." "No," Lyra interrupted sharply, yet not aggressively. "You can't, not yet." She stepped closer, still studying him. You carry a mark." "A mark," Elias repeated. "I don't understand." Her eyes softened and she shook her head. "It's not something I can explain yet, but I need to know why you are here." Elias swallowed hard. He was a trained explorer, used to strange alien worlds, but nothing had prepared him for this. "I'm here to explore, to understand your world, and to learn," he said carefully. "That's all." Lyra's gaze lingered, then she gestured for him to follow. Hesitant but curious, Elias did. She led him through corridors that seemed to shift and pulse with light, their walls displaying faint images of beings who looked almost like humans. Scenes of battles, celebrations, and strange rituals flashed silently on the crystalline surfaces. "Zithra has a long history," Lyra said quietly. "One humans do know, one humans were part of." Elias' heart skipped a beat. "Humans, hear that, can't be. We've never recorded contact with this planet." Lyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she guided him into a large chamber. At its center was a pedestal holding a floating crystal sphere. Inside, faint holographic images danced, humans wearing armor standing alongside beings that looked like her people. "These are," Elias whispered. "The ancestors of your kind," Lyra said. Her voice was a mix of awe and sorrow. "Centuries ago, humans came to our world. They helped save Zithra from destruction. Some stayed, but most left. Only one was marked, and the mark returned to you." Elias' mind raced. "Marked me." "Yes," she said simply, her eyes now softer but still filled with intensity. "That is why I froze. That is why I know you are important." Elias felt a mix of disbelief and wonder. "I don't understand. How could this be? I've never even been near this place." Lyra shook her head. "Some things are not explained by simple travel or knowledge. Some things are destiny." Elias stared at her, feeling a strange connection he couldn't explain. This was no ordinary exploration. Something about Zithra, about Lyra, about him. It all felt intertwined. Before he could ask more, a low hum filled the chamber. The walls pulsed. The light shifted, forming a path toward another part of the palace. Lyra glanced at him. "You need to see this," she said. "It will explain some of what you were sent here to discover." Curiosity outweighed caution. Elias nodded, following her down the glowing path. The palace seemed to come alive around them. Doors opened silently, walls shifted, and faint whispers echoed, like the voices of the past calling to him. They arrived at a massive hall where holographic maps of Zithra floated mid-air. Points of light blinked across continents and oceans. Lyra touched one, and an image of a battle appeared, humans fighting alongside Zitharans against shadowy alien invaders. Elias watched in awe. This is incredible. How is this possible?" Lyra's eyes glimmered. "It is not just history, it is proof that humans have always been part of Zithara's story, and now you are here because the story is not finished." Elias took a deep breath. He had expected adventure. He had expected discovery, but he had never expected this, a connection between humans and aliens that spanned centuries, destiny that linked him to a princess, and a planet he barely understood. The hum of the palace grew louder. Elias felt a thrill of fear and excitement. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing clearly: Zithra's story and his own was just beginning. Lyra looked at him one last time, eyes serious but hopeful. "Captain Moore, welcome to Zithra." And in that moment, Elias realized nothing in his life would ever be the same again. The palace of Zithra was alive with soft, radiant light, illuminating every corner as Elias followed Princess Lyra through its twisting corridors. Each step seemed to echo with history, yet the echoes weren't empty. They carried whispers of past victories, past struggles, and somehow past humans. Elias' mind raced as he tried to process what he had just seen. Humans had been here before. Humans had saved this world. And somehow, centuries later, he was the one standing in their place. Lyra moved with graceful precision, her footsteps silent on the polished crystalline floor. She seemed cautious but resolute, guiding Elias toward a chamber deeper within the palace. For a long while neither spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was expectant. Elias felt it pressing on him, a strange mix of curiosity and tension. Finally, he spoke. "Princess Lyra, you said humans saved Zithra. I don't understand. How is that possible?" "History from Earth doesn't record any contact with this planet." Lyra stopped and turned, her luminous eyes locking on his. "You are correct, human. Earth does not remember, but we do. My ancestors recorded the deeds of your kind. They called you heroes, saviors of Zithra." She paused, her gaze searching his face. "And now somehow destiny has returned one of them. You." Elias' heart skipped a beat. "Me, that can't be. I'm just an explorer. I wasn't born to save anyone." Lyra shook her head gently. "It is not something you were born to do, Elias. It is something your ancestors prepared for. The one who carries the mark returns when Zithra faces peril again, and the marca is within you." He felt a strange sensation, almost like an invisible weight pressing against his chest. He remembered the way she had frozen when she first saw him. Now he was beginning to understand. There was something in him that resonated with Zithra's past, a connection he could not explain, yet one he could not ignore. "Mark, destiny, ancestors," Elias muttered. "This is unbelievable, but why me? Why now?" Lyra sighed softly. "Questions will be answered. But first you must understand Zithra. Our world is not as it seems. The palace, the forests, even the rivers, they are alive with history and energy, and there are threats that do not wait for explanation." Elias glanced around. The chamber was massive, filled with holographic projections. Images floated in the air, moving like living paintings. They depicted Zithara's history, its people, its victories, its losses. And always, humans appeared in the midst of pivotal moments, helping Zitharans in ways that were clever, brave, and selfless. These humans, Elias said, pointing at the images, they look like us, like Earth humans. Yes, Lyra replied, but they are more than that. They were part of Zithara's story, and the one who carries the mark, he or she, is destined to return when we need them most. The words pressed heavily on Elias' mind. He had trained for years to explore uncharted worlds, but he had never imagined a destiny like this. He had never imagined that the legends of a distant planet could reach across time to him. Lyra led him to a smaller chamber, one filled with murals. Each mural depicted a different human working with Zitharans. They fought battles, repaired massive machines, and even performed ceremonies with the alien royalty. One figure stood out among the rest, a human whose features were strikingly familiar. Elias' pulse quickened as he looked closer. That looks like me," he whispered. Lyra nodded. "It is not you exactly, but the resemblance is undeniable. That is the one who carried the mark before, and now it has returned. You." Elias' hands trembled slightly as he processed her words. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do." "You will learn," Lyra said, her voice firm but gentle. "For now, you must see our world and understand what you are part of, but we do not have much time." Elias followed her into the palace corridors again. The walls shimmered and shifted, forming pathways that seemed to anticipate their movements. It was as if the palace itself guided them, aware of the importance of their mission. The corridors opened into a vast observatory overlooking Zithara's lands. Rivers of light flowed across the terrain, forests glimmered with energy, and distant mountains shimmered with a strange blue glow. "Zithara is alive," Elias whispered. "I've never seen anything like it." Lyra's eyes reflected the light of the observatory. "It is alive and it remembers. Every creature, every plant, every stone carries history, and it recognizes those who are part of that history." As they observed the planet, a sudden alert rang in the air. Red light flashed along the walls, accompanied by a low hum. Lyra's expression changed instantly. "Intruders," she said sharply. "They are approaching the palace." Elias' heart raced. "Who?" "Rogues," Lyra replied. "A faction from beyond Zithara. They want to control our world, seize our knowledge, and destroy anyone in their way." She turned to him. "You must be ready, human. Your presence here is not just destiny, it is necessity." Elias swallowed. He had trained for survival, for exploration, but combat against unknown alien forces was different. Still, he felt a surge of determination. Humans had faced impossible odds before, and somehow he knew this was the moment to prove that human ingenuity could shine, even here. Lyra led him through hidden passages, bypassing the main halls. "We have defenses," she explained, "but they have evolved. Our technology is advanced, but they are cunning. We must be smart, or we risk losing everything." They reached a room filled with control panels and holographic screens. Lyra gestured to the displays. "These systems have been dormant. Only the one marked by destiny can fully activate them, and that is you." Elias' eyes widened. "Me? How?" Lyra touched a screen and it shimmered under his hand. "The palace responds to the mark. It recognizes those who belong to its history. You carry the same essence, the same genetic imprint. You are the link." Elias felt a tingling sensation as the systems responded to his presence. Lights flickered, machines hummed, and walls shifted to reveal hidden chambers filled with ancient devices. He realized then that human intelligence, combined with Zithara's technology, could create wonders and perhaps save lives. Lyra studied him closely. "You must trust yourself, Elias. Your instincts, your mind, that is what saved humans before, and it can save Zithara now." Elias nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. He had never imagined that his life would lead him to a place like this. And yet, standing beside Lyra, witnessing the living history of Zithara, he felt a purpose he had never known before. Suddenly, alarms blared louder. Sensors detected movement approaching rapidly. Lyra's face hardened. "They are here," she said. "We have little time." Elias scanned the observatory. Outside, small ships descended from the sky, sleek and dark, moving with precision. He could see the rogue faction's soldiers armed and ready. Their eyes glowed faintly, and they moved with lethal efficiency. Lyra grabbed his arm. We must act quickly. Follow me. The palace has paths they do not know. We can use that to our advantage. They ran through twisting corridors, moving swiftly past doors and passages that shifted to hide them. The palace seemed to guide them, revealing shortcuts and secret rooms that had been dormant for centuries. Elias marveled at the technology, but his focus remained on survival and strategy. They reached a room with a large crystal sphere at its center, similar to the one they had seen earlier. Lyra touched it and the sphere expanded, projecting a map of the palace and its surroundings. Lights indicated the positions of intruders moving closer with every second. Elias studied the map. "We can set traps," he said. "We can use the palace against them." It's like a puzzle." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Exactly, and humans are clever with puzzles, yes." Elias smiled faintly despite the tension. "We like to solve impossible ones." Together they began planning. Using the palace's hidden mechanisms, they could activate barriers, redirect corridors, and isolate the intruders. Elias suggested a few strategies inspired by human engineering and logic. Lyra implemented them, impressed by his insight. For the first time, she seemed to see humans not just as legends, but as capable, brilliant allies. As the rogue forces drew nearer, Elias felt a surge of confidence. He was far from home, on a strange world facing enemies he had never imagined. And yet, with Lyra by his side, and with the legacy of humans guiding him, he felt ready. "Let us show them what humans can do," he said quietly. Lyra nodded, a small smile appearing on her face. "Yes, let us remind Zithra why the mark returned." Outside, the first of the rogue ships reached the palace. Inside, Elias and Lyra prepared. The silence of anticipation was broken only by the hum of the palace responding to him, the human with the mark. And in that moment, Elias knew one truth clearly. History was alive, destiny was real, and humans were extraordinary. The palace trembled faintly as Elias and Lyra watched the approaching rogue forces from the holographic map. Outside, the alien ships moved in tight formations, their engines glowing red against Zithra's soft green skies. Elias' mind raced. Humans had always relied on ingenuity to overcome impossible odds, and now, on this alien world, he had to do the same. Lyra turned to him, her expression serious. "Elias, you need to see something that will explain why the mark exists and why it returned to you." Elias followed her through another twisting corridor, deeper into the palace. This path felt older than the halls they had walked before. The walls were etched with murals, faded yet glowing faintly as if the palace itself wanted him to see them. The images depicted humans and Zithrans side by side, building structures, taming strange beasts, and fighting battles. The scenes moved almost like living paintings, showing detailed moments in time. "These humans," Elias said, pointing at one image, "they look like us." "Like real humans," Lyra nodded. "They were. Your ancestors, or at least your distant relatives. They came to Zithra centuries ago. They saved our world when it faced extinction from invaders unlike any we had ever known." Elias ran his hand along a mural. The texture was smooth, yet it almost hummed under his touch. "Saved it, but how? We weren't even capable of space travel back then." Lyra's eyes reflected a mixture of pride and sorrow. "Your kind has always been clever." They discovered ways to overcome technology and forces far beyond their own, using intelligence, creativity, and courage. They were extraordinary. And one of them carried a special mark, a genetic resonance with Zithra, a bond that would allow the future savior to be recognized. Elias felt a chill. "And now that mark is in me?" "Yes," Lyra said quietly. "That is why I froze when I first saw you. There was something in your presence that triggered recognition, something only the marked one could carry." He looked at her, a mixture of disbelief and awe. "So, I'm supposed to continue what they started?" Lyra nodded. "Not supposed, destiny chose you." "But destiny does not act alone. You must use your mind, your heart, and your instincts. That is what your ancestors did. That is what humans always do." Elias swallowed, trying to calm the surge of fear and excitement. He had always been trained to explore and adapt, but the weight of responsibility on his shoulders was unlike anything he had imagined. Yet, beneath the pressure, he felt a strange confidence. Humans had always faced the impossible, and somehow he knew this would be no different. Lyra led him to a hidden chamber beneath the palace. The door slid open silently, revealing a vast room filled with holographic archives. Light floated in the air, forming images of battles, cities, and beings he could barely comprehend. Humans stood among Zitherans, working together, saving lives, and building a legacy that had been hidden from the world. "These are the records," Lyra explained. "Everything Zithera remembers about humans, every action, every decision, every heroic moment." Elias' eyes widened. This is incredible, and it's all real?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, and now it is your turn to add to these records." As he moved closer, a holographic image of a human appeared. The figure bore striking resemblance to him, same facial structure, same stance, same confident look. Elias froze. "That's me," he whispered. Lyra shook her head gently. "Not exactly. That was the one who carried the mark before, the one who prepared Zithera for the future. You are the continuation of that legacy. The mark has returned, and with it the responsibility to protect this world." Elias' mind raced. The rogue forces outside were closing in. Time was short. "We can't just admire history," he said. "We need to act." Lyra's expression hardened. "You are right, but first you must understand what you are facing. They are not ordinary invaders. They are tactical, intelligent, and ruthless. They have studied Zithera and seek to control its technology and energy. If they succeed, our world could be lost forever." Elias nodded. "Then we fight smart, not just hard." Lyra led him to another part of the chamber, revealing a hidden control hub. Panels of holographic screens displayed the palace's defenses, ancient mechanisms, and energy grids. The systems were sophisticated, designed centuries ago by humans and Zitherans working together. But now they lay dormant, awaiting the one who carried the mark. "You must activate them," Lyra said. "Only the marked one can unlock their full potential." Elias stepped forward, placing his hands on the panels. A surge of energy pulsed through him as the systems recognized his presence. Lights flickered, machines hummed, and the walls shifted to reveal hidden corridors and defense mechanisms. The palace itself seemed to respond to him, alive and aware. Lyra watched, her expression a mixture of awe and relief. "The palace recognizes you. Your ancestors' ingenuity and courage are within you. Use them." Outside, the rogue forces were almost at the palace gates. Their ships fired pulses of energy, striking the crystalline walls. The palace trembled under the impact, but the hidden defense systems began to respond. Shields emerged, barriers rose, and automated mechanisms prepared for battle. Elias studied the displays. "We can isolate them," he said. "We can control their movements, trap them where we want." Lyra nodded. "Exactly. And with your mind guiding these systems, we can protect Zithera without risking unnecessary lives." For the first time, Elias felt the weight of human ingenuity. On Earth, humans had always adapted, solved problems, and faced overwhelming odds. And now on Zithera, that same cleverness was the key to survival. The first wave of rogue forces entered the palace, only to find corridors that shifted, walls that moved, and paths that led them into traps. Automated defense mechanisms, reactivated by Elias, disarmed them without harm. The rogue soldiers were clever, but they had never faced a system that anticipated their moves in real time, guided by the mind of a human trained to adapt and improvise. Lyra fought alongside him, using her agility and knowledge of the palace to outmaneuver the intruders. Together, they became a perfect team, human strategy combined with Zitheran skill. Elias activated a holographic map, guiding energy pulses to create temporary barriers. The rogue forces were funneled into a containment area, unable to escape. Their attacks became disorganized, frustrated by a system they couldn't predict. This is amazing," Elias muttered. "I've never done anything like this before." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then you are doing what humans always do. You are clever, resourceful, and brave. That is why the mark returned." Hours passed as they battled the rogue forces, each moment a test of strategy and skill. Elias discovered new ways to manipulate the palace's defenses, improvising tactics that even Lyra had not considered. His mind worked tirelessly, thinking 3 steps ahead, predicting the enemy's moves. Finally, the last of the intruders was trapped, the palace secured. Elias and Lyra stood amidst the glowing halls, breathing heavily but triumphant. The rogue faction had been defeated, not by brute force, but by intelligence, planning, and cooperation. Lyra looked at him with genuine admiration. "You have proven yourself, Elias. Humans are truly remarkable. Your ancestors would be proud." Elias shook his head, still catching his breath. I just did what humans do. We think, we adapt, we never give up, that's all. No, Lyra said firmly. It is more than that. It is the essence of humanity. Courage, ingenuity, and hope. That is why the palace recognized you. That is why you carry the mark. Elias felt a deep sense of connection, not just to Lyra or Zithra, but to his own species. Humans had always faced challenges that seemed impossible. And now, far from Earth, on an alien world, he realized that human brilliance could shine anywhere. Lyra led him back to the chamber with the holographic archives. The images of humans working alongside Zitharans seemed to glow brighter now, as if acknowledging his presence. You have added your actions to our history, Lyra said softly. And this is only the beginning. There will be more challenges, more discoveries, but you have proven that humans are not just part of legend. You are part of the living story of Zithra. Elias looked at the images, feeling a profound sense of purpose. The palace, the planet, and Lyra herself, all of it was now part of his journey. Humans had always been explorers, thinkers, and problem solvers, and here on Zithra he would continue that legacy. As the sun set over the glowing forests outside, Elias realized that destiny was not just about being chosen. It was about rising to meet the challenge. And with Lyra by his side and the ingenuity of humans guiding him, he knew Zithra had a chance to survive and thrive. For the first time, Elias truly understood why he had frozen in wonder, why he had felt the weight of history, and why the mark had chosen him. Humans were extraordinary, not because of strength or power, but because of their mind, their courage, and their heart. And Zithra had just witnessed the beginning of that truth. The palace of Zithra hummed softly, the glow of its crystalline walls reflecting the aftermath of the first wave of rogue attacks. Elias stood at the center of the main chamber, taking a deep breath. His hands still tingled from activating the palace's defense systems, and his mind raced with strategies for what could come next. He had survived the first assault, but he knew the battle was far from over. Lyra approached him, her steps light but purposeful. "They will return," she said quietly, her eyes scanning the glowing corridors. "The rogue faction always comes back stronger, smarter. They will learn from their mistakes." Elias nodded. "Then we must be ready. Humans always adapt. That's what makes us dangerous." Lyra allowed a small smile. "Yes, you are beginning to understand why the mark returned. Your kind is clever in ways even our technology cannot anticipate." They moved through the palace corridors, checking the defensive systems and repairing minor damages caused by the previous attack. The palace responded fluidly to Elias' touch, shifting walls and activating hidden passages as if it had been waiting for him all along. It was clear now that the palace was not just a structure. It was a living entity, connected to the history and energy of Zithra, recognizing the presence of the one marked by destiny. As they worked, Lyra spoke softly. "Elias, the rogue faction is not just after power. They seek Zithra's energy. Our world's energy is unique, able to enhance technology in ways they cannot replicate. If they seize it, they could dominate countless worlds. That is why you are here. That is why the mark chose you." Elias paused, considering her words. "So this isn't just about saving Zithra, it's about protecting the galaxy." Lyra nodded gravely. "Yes, and we have only one chance to stop them." Suddenly, the palace trembled violently. Alarms blared as red lights flashed along the walls. Sensors detected a massive approach, far larger than the first attack. Elias' pulse quickened. The rogue faction had returned with more ships, more soldiers, and more determination. "They've learned from the first attack," Elias said, analyzing the holographic displays. "We need a plan that uses more than the palace's defenses. We need to be proactive." Lyra's eyes gleamed with determination. "Then let us be proactive. Lead the way, human. Show me what your kind can do." Elias took a deep breath. Humans had always thrived in impossible situations, relying on ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability. He focused on the palace's systems, scanning for ways to turn the environment into an advantage. He noticed hidden corridors that could trap enemies, energy channels that could redirect attacks, and dormant machinery that could be activated to block or confuse intruders. "This palace is incredible," he muttered. "And with the right strategy, we can make it impossible for them to advance." Lyra nodded. "Use it. The palace will respond to your commands, but we must also be ready to fight ourselves." They began to prepare. Holographic maps displayed multiple entry points. Elias activated energy barriers, sealing corridors that could allow enemies to bypass the palace's defenses. He programmed automated systems to redirect the intruders, herding them into controlled areas. The rogue faction would find themselves trapped, disoriented, and outmatched, not by brute force, but by strategy and intellect. Outside, the alien ships descended rapidly, their engines glowing red against Zithra's glowing forests. Ilias monitored their movements, predicting their paths and adjusting the palace's defenses in real time. Each attack was countered before it could fully strike. Walls shifted, floors reconfigured, and automated energy pulses neutralized incoming threats. Lyra fought alongside him, using her agility and combat skills to intercept any rogue forces that managed to breach the defenses. Her movements were precise, almost dance-like, as she combined her own strength with Ilia's strategic guidance. Together, they became an unstoppable team, a perfect blend of human ingenuity and Zitharan skill. Hours passed in a tense rhythm of action and calculation. Ilias guided energy flows, activated hidden traps, and improvised new defenses on the fly. Each move was a testament to human creativity and problem-solving. Lyra's admiration for him grew with every successful maneuver. "You think fast," she said during a brief pause, her eyes reflecting the glowing walls. "Faster than anyone I have known." "Your ancestors were right to be called saviors." Ilias shook his head, catching his breath. "I'm just thinking humans do what they must to survive, that's all." "No," Lyra said firmly. "It is more than survival, it is courage, foresight, and heart. That is why humans are remarkable. That is why you carry the mark." As they spoke, the rogue forces regrouped, sending elite squads directly into the palace. Ilias analyzed their approach, then smiled faintly. "They're predictable. They think the last attack was a fluke. Let's show them it was." He activated a series of hidden platforms that rose from the floor, redirecting the intruders into narrow corridors. Automated energy barriers funneled them into a central chamber, where the palace could contain them safely. It was a perfect trap, designed not to harm them unnecessarily but to neutralize the threat effectively. Lyra watched with awe. "You are a genius," she whispered. Ilias shook his head. "Not genius, human. We adapt, we improvise, and we never give up." The rogue forces struggled within the controlled chambers, confused and frustrated by the palace's shifting layout. They fired weapons, but the energy barriers absorbed the attacks. Automated systems redirected them endlessly, disorienting them and keeping them contained. Ilias had turned the palace itself into a battlefield where human intellect dictated every move. Outside, their ships began to retreat, realizing that brute force alone could not overcome the defenses. Ilias smiled faintly. "They're retreating for now. But they'll be back stronger. We need to be ready." Lyra nodded. "And we will be. With your guidance, human Zithra can withstand anything. Your mind is the key." Ilias felt a surge of pride and purpose. He had trained for years to explore and survive, but this was beyond any challenge he had faced. Humans had always faced impossible odds, and now, far from Earth, he was doing it again. Not with weapons or power, but with strategy, creativity, and intelligence. As they moved through the palace, repairing minor damages and reinforcing defenses, Ilias reflected on the events of the day. Humans were often underestimated, even by themselves. But when faced with challenges that required more than strength, challenges that required thought, adaptation, and courage, they shined. Lyra paused at a large window overlooking the glowing forests. "You have proven yourself today, Ilias, not just as a warrior, but as a thinker. That is why the Mark chose you. That is why you are here." Ilias gazed out at the horizon. The rogue forces would return, no doubt, but he felt ready. Humans had always risen to challenges, and he was living proof. With Lyra at his side, with the palace responding to him, and with human ingenuity guiding their actions, Zithra had a chance. "Let's make sure they know humans are not to be underestimated," Ilias said quietly, determination in his voice. Lyra smiled. "Yes. Let us show them why the Mark returned. Let us show them the power of human ingenuity and courage." The sun set over Zithra's forests, painting the sky in hues of gold and blue. Inside the palace, lights shimmered along the crystalline walls, reflecting the triumph of intellect over brute force. But both Ilias and Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The rogue faction would return, stronger and more cunning. Yet they also knew that with strategy, courage, and cooperation, they could face anything. Elias placed his hand on a control panel, feeling the pulse of the palace beneath his fingers. It responded to him, alive and aware, as if acknowledging his resolve. He realized then that destiny was not just about being chosen. It was about rising to meet the challenge with every skill, every thought, and every ounce of courage one possessed. "Tomorrow," Elias said softly, "we'll be ready for them. And we'll show them why humans are extraordinary." Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. "Yes, and together we will protect Zithra, its people, and its history. Together we will honor the legacy of your ancestors." As the night deepened, the palace glowed with soft light, a beacon of resilience and ingenuity. Outside, the stars shone over Zithra's forests, silent witnesses to a story centuries in the making. A story of humans, courage, and destiny intertwined with the fate of an alien world. Elias knew that challenges lay ahead, but he also knew that with human ingenuity, determination, and heart, nothing was impossible. Zithra had been saved once before by humans, and now, with him, it would be saved again. For the first time, Elias felt the full weight and wonder of the mark. It was not just a burden, it was a call to greatness, a chance to show that humans were truly extraordinary. And as Zithra's palace pulsed with light and energy, Elias understood the truth he had always suspected. Humans, when faced with the impossible, would always rise, always adapt, always prevail. The rogue faction would return, the challenges would grow. But Elias and Lyra, united by trust, strategy, and courage, were ready. And the story of humans on Zithra was only just beginning. The sun rose over Zithra, casting golden light over the crystal palace and the glowing forests below. For Elias, sleep had been impossible. His mind raced with thoughts of the rogue faction, the mark, and the legacy of humans that now rested on his shoulders. The palace hummed softly, alive with the energy that had guided him through every challenge. He could feel it pulsing beneath his fingertips, as if urging him to prepare for the final confrontation. Lyra appeared silently at his side. Her expression was calm, but her eyes revealed the tension beneath. "They have gathered their forces," she said. "This will be their largest attack yet." Elias nodded, already scanning the holographic displays. Ships, far larger and more numerous than before, were advancing across the skies toward the palace. Elite squads of the rogue faction, better trained and more coordinated, were moving along the ground. This was not just an attack, it was a full-scale invasion. "We need a plan that uses everything," Elias said. "The palace, the defenses, and, most importantly, our brains." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Then let us show them the power of humans and Zitharans together." They began preparations immediately. Elias activated every system the palace could offer. Hidden corridors reconfigured, energy barriers rose, and automated defense mechanisms hummed to life. The palace itself seemed to anticipate the rogue faction's strategy, responding in ways no ordinary human or Zitharan could predict. Elias guided it with precise commands, his mind moving faster than anyone had expected. "Divide and conquer," he muttered to Lyra. "We can funnel them into zones where the palace has maximum control. Their numbers won't matter if we control the battlefield." Lyra nodded. "I will lead the ground forces. You guide the palace. Together we will turn their advantage into their weakness." The first wave of the invasion reached the palace. Alien ships fired energy pulses, but the palace's barriers absorbed them. Corridors shifted beneath the ground squads, trapping them in containment zones. Automated energy nets immobilized groups of intruders, while redirected corridors caused confusion and disarray. Every move Elias made was precise, calculated, and creative, true human ingenuity in action. Lyra led a squad of Zitharan defenders through one of the palace's hidden corridors. Her movements were fluid and deliberate, guiding the soldiers to intercept intruders at critical points. She fought with skill and grace, but she followed Elias' guidance at every step, trusting his instincts completely. Elias studied the holographic map, noting where intruders were trapped and where new threats were approaching. "They'll try to regroup near the central chamber," he predicted. "We can use the energy conduits there to contain them." The rogue forces, realizing their numbers and strength were no longer enough, attempted a direct assault on the palace's core. Elias quickly rerouted energy flows, activating dormant machinery. Floors shifted, walls moved, and energy barriers formed a maze that the invaders could not escape. Their attacks grew frantic, their discipline broken by the palace itself. "You're amazing," Lyra whispered during a brief pause, watching Elias coordinate the defense. I've never seen anyone think this fast. Elias smiled faintly. Humans adapt. That's what we do, always have, always will. Hours passed in tense combat. The rogue faction continued to push, but every move they made was anticipated, countered, or redirected. The palace responded to Elias, almost as if it understood the importance of his actions. Lyra fought alongside him, combining her strength with the palace's technology, guiding her soldiers, and protecting critical points. Finally, the rogue faction's leader, a tall, armored alien with glowing eyes, attempted to confront Elias directly, bypassing all defenses. Elias activated a series of energy fields that forced the intruder into a containment area. The palace's systems immobilized the leader without causing serious harm, neutralizing the threat efficiently. Lyra approached Elias, her expression relieved but still serious. It is over for now. The rogue faction has been defeated. Elias exhaled, feeling the tension in his shoulders ease. We did it, not by fighting harder, but by thinking smarter. That's the power of humans. Lyra studied him with deep respect. It is more than that. Humans are courageous, intelligent, and resourceful. That is why the mark exists. That is why it returned to you. Elias looked around at the palace, now quiet except for its soft, radiant glow. He could feel the history, the energy, and the legacy of humans pulsing through the walls. For the first time, he fully understood what Lyra had meant about the mark, not just a symbol, but a connection to generations of humans who had faced impossible odds and prevailed. You know, Elias said softly, I never imagined humans could be part of a story like this. Far from Earth on a world like Scythera, it's incredible. Lyra smiled. It is, and now you are part of that story. You have proven yourself worthy of the mark. The palace recognizes it, the people recognize it, and so do I. Elias felt a surge of pride. Not arrogance, but a deep understanding of what it meant to be human. The ability to adapt, to think, and to act with courage even when the odds seemed impossible. That was what Scythera needed, and that was what he had given. After the battle, Lyra led him to the central chamber, where the holographic archives of Scythera's history glowed softly. The images of humans past shimmered, and Elias could almost feel their presence, their pride, and their hope. These are your ancestors, Lyra said quietly. And now your actions are part of their legacy. Scythera will remember humans not just as legends, but as heroes. Elias gazed at the holograms, feeling a connection deeper than anything he had ever experienced. The humans of Earth had reached for the stars, faced unknown challenges, and left a legacy that had endured across centuries and galaxies. And now he had added his own chapter. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. Elias, the palace has recorded your actions. Scythera has witnessed your courage. You have honored your ancestors, and you have shown that humans are extraordinary. Elias smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. I only did what humans do. We face what we must, we think, we adapt, and we never give up. Lyra's eyes glistened with admiration. That is why the mark exists. That is why you were chosen. And now humans and Scytherans can move forward together as allies. Elias looked out the window at the glowing forests and distant mountains. Scythera was safe, for now. But more than that, he felt a sense of unity, a bond between humans and Scytherans that transcended time and distance. The rogue faction may return, Elias said quietly, but Scythera is ready, and humans are ready too. Lyra nodded. Yes. And together we will face whatever comes. We will explore, protect, and discover, humans and Scytherans side by side. Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest. The mark was not just a burden, it was a connection to hope, courage, and unity. Humans had always been extraordinary, not because of strength, but because of their mind, their heart, and their determination. As the day ended, the palace glowed brighter, a beacon of resilience and ingenuity. The holographic images of humans and Scytherans working together shimmered, reflecting the success of their alliance and the victory of intellect and courage over brute force. Lyra turned to Elias, her smile soft but full of respect. You have proven the legends true. Humans are remarkable, and now you are part of our history. Elias felt a deep sense of pride, tempered with humility. I only did what humans do. We never give up, we always think, and we face the impossible. That's what makes us us. Lyra nodded. And that is why the mark returned to you, to show Scythera and the galaxy the brilliance of humanity. Outside, the stars shone over Scythera's forests, silent witnesses to a story that spanned centuries. a story of humans, courage, ingenuity, and destiny. Elias knew that challenges would come again, but he also knew that humans, when faced with the impossible, would always rise, always adapt, always prevail. And in that moment, Elias felt the full truth of the mark. It was not just a symbol of destiny, it was a recognition of what humans could achieve, of what they had always achieved across time and space. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder one last time. The future of Zithra is brighter because of you. And the story of humans has only just begun here. Elias smiled, gazing at the glowing horizon. He understood now that humans were extraordinary, not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because of their minds, their courage, and their unyielding spirit. The palace pulsed softly, acknowledging him, acknowledging humans, and acknowledging the bond that had been restored across centuries. Zithra was safe, the rogue faction defeated, and the legacy of humanity celebrated. For the first time, Elias felt complete. He was not just an explorer. He was a bridge between worlds, a continuation of a legacy, and a living testament to human ingenuity and courage. And as night fell over Zithra with the palace glowing like a beacon across the forests, Elias knew one thing for certain. The story of humans was far from over. It had only just begun.